Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dr. Deep State. Our segment today is entitled A Plan for World Enslavement. And I am here with my producer and co host of a show we do every Wednesday on Locals called Connect the Dots. And what we're up to today is to kind of give you a feeling of what we do. So we're going to do a segment from that show today, and then we're going to be going over to Locals to finish it off. So, Jackie, again, as my producer and co-host, how are you today, Jackie? I hope very
Uh,
well.
oh, I'm doing very well, very good, and I'm excited about this. And hopefully, we can get some people interested in locals because we really do have a great community out there, and we work together and helping us get through some of the difficulties we experience in the world and even in the church. So it's a great community.
Yes, and everything really, I would like to say that we do on the channel is about connecting the dots, and we'll be doing some of that through our broadcast here today.
Yes.
All the way from the beginning of Dr. Deep State, there's kind of one feeling of connecting the dots. If I were going to title this, I might even just say The Plan for World Enslavement 666. It's a little cheesy, but it gets you kind of thinking that in redemption history, it does really finish with a story about world enslavement and a great deception, and why we should maybe think about, is there a system forming around us right now, like sort of this, what they sometimes
Right.
call sixth generation warfare. Even as we speak, this beast system is surrounding us. And so many of us are just not connecting the dots, not thinking about that. And so I'll drop a term like biopolitics, which I've always done, how it's kind of baked into everything and the spectacle and so forth. So
Mhm.
we'll be talking a little bit about that.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I do want to remind us at the end of the program, the links will be in the description for the locals. If you want to become a supporter, it's $5 a month. We do a minimum of 3 programs a week, always connecting the dots, going into the metaverse. Historically, how is this system being built around us? So we do that once a week. We do our show, Connecting the Dots, and then we do Friday, Memory Hole Day, Memory Hole Friday. Today, I'll mention the saint that we're going to be going into. But first, let me begin with this concept here. This is we often on Memory Hole Friday, we've gotten over it, we've been past it, but we worked for quite a while on Civila Catholica from 1890. Here we have this quote from the journal: any Christian country that abandons the laws that were instituted by Christian king, a Christian king, will end up being ruled by the Jays. Now that is provocative. Like, were these, this is 1890. We don't talk like that anymore. This must be passe. This must be, maybe it was just some Catholics, maybe some monks were drinking too much Trappist beer and just got crazy, and someone recorded it and like, hey, if you're not really, if your country's not devoted to Christ, the Jays will capture it. Is that crazy talk or what? And of course, that is provocative for us today. Many of our modern Masonic republics that we call democracies or republics of some sort, that's the very theme, that we didn't totally give them over. And according to this argument, traditionally understood Jewish, Catholic teaching is that there is a power in the world that will enslave the mind, body, and soul of a Christian if he doesn't completely, if we do not give our entire societies over to Christ the King. So very provocative. And it's suggesting either you're devoted to slavery to Christ or slavery to Antichrist, to keep this really simple. Isn't that a nice, simple way to say it, Jackie?
It's a very nice, simple way to say it, and I love that you brought forward a older father of the church, because when that's what the problem is today in our minds, we can't even go back there, we're not even receptive to that, and that's what causes that blindness, that because we're only in the moment, in the area where we are in life, that we're missing so much more of the church, and that understanding of the JQ and what was going and what is now going on in the world, because we don't have that anymore. It's not brought forward and talked and thought about. So
Because this system of Antichrist has been baked into the
Yes.
very cake of our constitutions and so forth. And that's a big idea. One of the ideas that Jackie and I were kicking around this week, many people talk about Palantir. We know
Yeah.
President Trump came out talking about Stargate and Nero late. I mean, the first week, he's just all of a sudden like, did we vote for this at Greenland and all this stuff? And he's talking about essentially Palantir and J.D. Vance, and we're learning more about Peter Thiel and what this system is. And we'll talk about this. This is where this system has brought us. And we want to think through the implications because this isn't 20 years down the road kind of stuff. And I think we have to, as they say, wake up or think about some of this stuff. So we have talked in the last several weeks quite a bit about this idea of JQ. People bandy this around quite a bit on social media these days, but I wanted us to think about it through the lens of the church, from 1890 to 1930s. When they said it, what did it mean? Now, before I return to the JQ, we talked about this book, which is just consistent with all the other sources we're using, all of the sources we use on Memory Hole Friday, Behind Communism. And he mentions at the beginning to understand the enslavement that was going on by the Bolsheviks when they captured the country, captured the minds, bodies, and souls, and left the population in a zombie-like state. In that might be part of the heirs of Russia. They weren't firmly committed to Christ the King. And that was one of the heirs, is one of the suggestions that we have, because you're either, as the gospel says, you're either for me or against me, the Lord Jesus Christ would say. So in this book, when he's looking at the trajectory of the slavery of the Russian people, he really begins in the ancient world and captures a pattern of a monopoly on slavery in the ancient world by our friends. And it's always been there. Now, it's hard to kind of get a word there that's satisfying, but I tend to use Father Fahey's work because he worked on this systematically, and he would call it organized Jewry. So in what we call the JQ, we deal with that concept. The other adjacent authors deal with that concept. And I'm now talking mostly authors from the church. So this was written in 67 after Vatican II. And again, after the plot against the church that very fully documents this historical concept that wherever the JQs go, the result is the same. It's a bending any place in time, any culture, any ethnicity, any political system, any ideology, bending it, monopolizing it to their world in order for a type of enslavement. We're moving over here thinking 666. Like, where does this just come? Just pop out of nowhere? You're going to take a mark? So we're this is something that's baked into scripture. And of course, what I've always done when I've connected the dots, it's the first prophecy of scripture. I will put enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the man, and the seed of the serpent, the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman. The seed of the serpent is always copying, emulating, making a false reality, capturing the consciousness of the seed of the woman, and ultimately imprisoning the whole consciousness. So there can be nothing but a world of the mind and the followers of the serpent. And that's what we generally call In Pursuit of the Metaverse. And links are in the description for that book. The whole page I do here essentially is the creation of the books and connecting the dots along the way. But in order to do that, I'm always engaging the audience as I'm developing and connecting the dots for all of the books. My newest book is called Apocalypse of the Saints. And I want to hear, what are the great saints saying to us today? So all the way from St. Stephen to the great St. Colby, I hear one consistent message is that there is a slave system being built around you. And you have to bear in mind, you're either giving your mind, body, and soul over to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and any weak spots in your faith, any slippage in your holiness will be captured by the serpent and his followers. So this week on Friday, Memory Hole Friday, we're going to work from a saint called Saint Agabard, medieval saint, 9th century. Most people have never heard of him. And he was noticing, he's kind of from Spain, living in France at that time. It's a medieval world, quite a bit different, but he's noticing that when you come in contact with this organized group, they enslave Christians. And he was concerned for a number of reasons. Number one, that in many cases, they don't allow them to be baptized if they're not just selling them off for profit. But there's this goal to kill that seed of light inside of him, the great saint would say. And what I've been fascinated about all of our saints is there's always commentary in each case. Even if you find the saint on YouTube, you go down to Wikipedia and all the footnotes are dominated by the Jays and their perception of that great saint. So what we're hearing again with Leon de Ponce, when he surveys all this work, is that these were the masterminds behind Vatican II, Jules, and so forth. They would say, all of your doctors, all of the apostles, all of them are just haters, anti-Sems that are lead on the road to Auschwitz and the great event, the big number. So they would just chalk him down as, again, and even people from the church that kind of malign these people. There's always an assumption, well, Christ wasn't really real anyway. So it was all a big delusion. So when you were mean to us, you were all just kind of crazy haters, and it left, to the camps. And so that's how they tend to be treated whenever you kind of give your perception of this. And from a Christian Catholic perception, that when we yoke, they capture part of our, and eventually our minds, bodies, spirits, our political, economic systems. And I'm going to be getting into that in just a moment. I intend this segment to be sort of short, because we're really going to kick it over and really dig into the videos and whatnot and what's current that speaks to this world of enslavement. How you doing, Jackie?
I'm doing good. You want me to give me any comment on that? What's
Yeah,
that?
sure. Go for
Okay,
it.
so really quick, when you talk like that, I just think about how the passion came for the church at the moment of the cross, and that Jesus, when he says those words to all of us and to his apostles, it resonates in me when he says, "Pick up that cross and follow me." It's like connecting those dots, that the passion of the church was called for all of us to pick up that cross, because the little serpent is at our feet and trying to keep us from carrying that cross of the passion for the church. And just recently, Father at my chapel had spoke about how Peter was on the road saying he wasn't going to go back to Rome, and Jesus lets him know that he needs to turn around and go back to Rome and carry that cross for the church. And that is how the church continued to come forward. And so we have to continue to do that now, connecting all those dots with what is going on in the world, and how we, as the church, because we are the church, how do we hold up that cross and through that passion that we're getting from the world, that the serpent hands us.
Excellent. I might just have you talk a little bit more, because I am going to bring up, this is big time memory hole stuff, silent weapons for quiet wars. Before I do, what this really speaks to is Palantir. And just we can only begin to go into Palantir, but just a little bit, Jackie, just surface level, how big, how importante is Palantir?
Yeah, I think they are. They've probably been working for quite a while now, and we don't know how long they have, but they are very much in a web of all of our information, and now they are taking on Israel as their big project now, which is very interesting with things going on around in the world. But technology is what's going to come over us in that surveillance style. and try to get us now thinking about how government needs to surveil more in order to protect us. And I think that's a real big deception. And I think Palantir is going to be a part of all of that. And we are now seeing some of those connections.
Yeah. So when we talk about the deep state, my idea is a lot of people try to talk about it to differing effects. What I've said from the beginning is there's a spiritual component to this, and it's scriptural. But the typical deep state, the people kind of calling the shots are from the commanding heights of the economy, the owners and controllers of international finance. And that they are that when people say, oh, it's a CIA or MI, what do they mean? They mean that they don't work for the nation states. They work for the high finance that is building a global planet prison for us. So Palantir right now has pretty much usurped all of the other surveillance systems, and of course is really headed out of the Middle East there. So it's a whole nother level. The technologies of our minds can't even get our heads around the level of this prison system. But you're going to see Tom Cruise. I've never actually seen the film Minority Report, but we'll get a bit of this in a moment. We're going to really do it heavy over on locals, but you can be arrested for what you think, not what you say. And this is very real. And we can see this with legislation being proposed right now in several countries and several different US states. This is very real. And so Palantir is the monopoly of the monopolies that's going to create this system. Now, today, sometimes we say, well, modern warfare, it's not always guns and tanks, but there's this idea of sort of fifth, and now sometimes it's called sixth generation warfare. And I indeed have that as one of my modern themes in pursuit of the metaverse, that we're building up toward a type of warfare. And when we're living in this age of deception, this is a crazy concept that we know that our different nation states, especially if you're from America, have been engaged in wars at different levels in the kind of traditional or formal sense. But I want to introduce this idea right now that we have been participants unwillingly, unknowingly in warfare our whole lives. So I'm going to right now refer to a book called Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. I had this PDF over 10 years ago. One of our locals members, one of my spiritual mentors, sent it to me very recently. And I popped through it. And just a quick couple opening remarks. This is definitely what we would consider conspiracy research, because it's not scholarly. It's not. What it is its origins seem to come from the date appears to be that I'm going to be referencing here, 1954. There's a crazy story. It was found behind some computers in the 1970s and the 1980s. The important part of this, it works like the protocols. And the protocols are the of bump, 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 elder, bump, bump. They don't like this in the keywords. Elders of Zion, which all of the church fathers, all of the heads of state that ended up quoting that document, that is what I'm referring to, is the protocols. They are just written off. Like St. Colby referenced them. He referenced everything else that was consistent with it, all the documents, Civila Catholica and so forth. But once you reference that, it was almost kind of planned that, because we don't have the true origins. It's a copy of a copy, but it's consistent. So what I'm going to talk about here briefly is a plan that everything in here is like all of the other information that somebody, if this was guesswork, they were batting 1,000% on the plans for the future. So Bill Cooper, another person in that world, behold a pale horse. He thinks it probably came from what we would call the Bilderberg group. I sound like Alex Jones right now. The Bilderberg group. It's the Bilderbergs. So it's probably one of those kind of, but get your head around the type of prison system they have planned for us at this time. And I have a couple quick quotes, and I lost my page. Here we go. And this is just me, it just kind of popped open and I looked at a couple things. So I want to share them in regard to this plan for world enslavement, ending up at really a high-tech surveillance state. And in some cases, as Huxley would say, we might even love our servitude. We don't know. It might be something that we might put on. Of course, we're not going to put on the glasses. Zuck says, we're way past putting on the glasses. You are the glasses, right? So if we don't see how we're fishing water, and it's all this is baked into our very political, social, economic, cultural systems, we can't kind of see. So we want to have one foot back in how did the church, how did our saints, how did the doctors always understand the nature of this prison system that would build towards 666. So here I have 1954, the planners and the schemers. Think about the level of, I'm going to assume my audience, can kind of picture the level of computers. I think the Apple was kind of a slow thing in the 1980s. And, in the 1960s, it took a whole room to have a computer. So this is 1954, and we're talking about computer technology in the home as an application. First, it would involve a number of future shocks. They do use the kind of concept in here, crisis out of order, create the order, get the case. So when they say, shocks, we're going to shock it into implementation. Okay. The response of the household through a series of future shocks can be predicated upon a certain type of manipulation of society when it becomes a regulated animal with its reins under total control. So I've talked much on this channel from the very beginning, especially I went into it particularly on a chapter in Seeing Through the Singularity. Links are in the description. And the people that are creating this system fancy themselves as eugenicists, that they want to control even babies in the womb down to every last level. And you might like, who does that? Like these crazy Anglican type of eugenicists like Malthus and Darwin. This is part of the same plan. And the best source I would suggest to go to this is a book from 1932 by Michael Higger called The J-Utopia. They take the visions from Jeremiah, from Ezekiel, from Daniel, and they put it into a world, a metaverse kind of world. So he imagines this utopia for the Jays. And when we talk on here always about Noahide, it's really just one piece of an overall surveillance control system. So that's what they're talking about. The whole world under a eugenic control where non-Jays are our cattle, and we will control them, all of the movements if they are allowed to live, in a sophisticated, computer-regulated, socially engineered bookkeeping system. So complete algorithmically controlled of anybody that survives into this new state. Computer. Okay. It's kind of fascinating. I'll read a little bit more. Eventually, every individual element of the structure comes under computer control through the knowledge of a personal preferences, such as knowledge guaranteed by computer association with preferences and universal code. So it's already a system of controlling the world through algorithms. This is almost anticipating what Palantir, and we can only get into some on this video of the details of the technology, but it's precisely what Palantir is. So it's a whole world run by computer code in order to herd, literally be the herders, the eugenicists of the whole planet, the husband masters. So with identification of each consumer, with the use of credit card, the 1954, the use of credit card, and later a proponent of quote unquote tattooed body number invisible under normal ambient illumination. This was written in 1954. So that's the mark of the beast. You'll have a mark in your forehead or the hand. They're already saying we want a whole computerized surveillance system of the whole world. It is sometimes said that God is omnipotent. He knows everything. He's all knowing. And that the counterfeit version of the evil one is to have a computer type of surveillance state so he can be the monkey of God and being all known through technology. So I find that kind of interesting. The summary, economics, then it'll be baked into the very political, economic, cultural systems. This surveillance system is only a social extension of a natural energy system. And in short, they're going to apprehend all of the energy fields. That's where you get into Elon Musk and monopolizing one wave of energy. But what I've always called this is biopolitics and cabala. So the plan for enslavement is part of cabala. It's controlling the left and the right of all social systems and steering it toward ultimately into the surveillance systems. Biopolitics is a fringe part of political science where it's baked into the modern political systems, this system of control, Foucault would say, over bodies through discipline. So we kind of get you to police yourself in accordance to our preferences. So we bend your preferences in accordance to our preferences. Now, when I talk about, is this getting crazy, Jackie? I haven't read any of this to you. Okay.
No, but it does definitely connect some dots for me back in the garden where the serpent was already surveilling our first parents. So it sounds pretty on target.
Yeah, part of the time prison that when we took a fall from the garden into this ontological kind of time prison, some of the angels that became fallen angels, they were privy to a lot of knowledge before it was kind of defined in time zones. So they were privileged to certain. So when the serpent did that, he anticipated how he could eternally mimic God and deceive many. And the ultimate, I will not serve God. I want to be, and this is where Satan gets you. I want to serve myself. You're already you're a servant of slave. And we're going to get into the spectacle here. That's the spectacle. Our amusements is how we are enslaved by the evil one and ultimately on the ground through J control. So since energy is the key to all activity on the face of the earth, it follows that in order to obtain a monopoly, and that's what all the books said, Henry Ford, all the authors, they lust after monopoly of everything: cultural monopoly, political monopoly, economic monopoly, social monopoly. So they want a monopoly on all of the energy and computer code. So all the energy and computer code, raw materials, and Sevilla Católica 1890 said they already captured all of the resources in 1890. I mean, you're talking about gold, lead, ink, all the things that you would, the precious metals and so forth. So colonization by these masters of slavery at the sea had always been part and parcel with controlling the resources of the world. To have the slave labor. So the monopoly of energy, raw materials, goods and services, and to establish a world system of slave labor. Is this a little obscure? Is it hard to understand where we're going with all this? So this has been planned. Palantir didn't just drop out of a tree, and Elon Musk and Trump, oh, I kind of like your style, Elon. I'm going to get Doge with you. And we can get to Doge. I don't think we can get to it in this. Now, what we're told is if there was any savings in Doge right now, because Trump, I mean, part of the deception's Trump. I guess people are getting that. If you're already trapped by it, you're probably not going to come around. So whatever, you're not watching. But, before the election, I might cut the military in half. Well, right now he's going to add $1 trillion. That's more than the alleged savings of Doge, of course, in preparation for the event in the Middle East that's going to bring on the new order out of chaos, right? So anybody still grabbing on to him and okay. Slave labor system. Wow. So, I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. We're going to slave labor system, and it's going to be surveilled through computer code. 1954. This is becoming increasingly difficult to control everything without the complete monopoly on energy and ultimately computer programming. So it is only a matter of time before the new breed of private program economist will catch the far-reaching implications of the work begun at Harvard in 1948. Okay. The speed with which they can communicate their warning and the public will largely depend on how effective we have been controlling the media, subverting education, and keeping the public distracted with matters of no real importance. So I want to jump now to the back of the book. And one of the key, and I hate being this guy. Nobody else talked about the spectacle or connected it to everybody else. So people out there doing this, I don't have any expectations. I know kind of making connections is not everybody's bag.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
This is, I call this the spectacle. So this is how they're going to implement their plan.
Yeah.
Experience has proven that the simplest method of securing silent weapons for gaining control of the public is to keep the public undisciplined and ignorant of the basic systems and principles on the one hand, while keeping them confused, disorganized, and distracted with matters of no real importance on the other hand. So this is the spectacle. This is the world of our modern amusements. And this is unreal.
Well, I find it interesting that many don't want to live in the reality that you're trying to share with everyone in connecting the dots. And I think that the most simple thing that we could look at and see this type of control and get ourselves wrapped around that reality of this enslavement and surveillance is when we all allowed the apple in our hand that we literally cannot get out of our hand, and now we have to do everything on that apple that's in our hand. It's like that's the first moment in everybody's lives that should just hit them with the reality of how you could be enslaved to something.
Okay. I like that, Jackie. And what I'm going to say, there are two things. Once, we know we have a God that loves us because he gave us free will. When we take the mark, we give over the image of God to the image of man at that moment. That's when we accept the metaverse, take the mark. But until that time, there are people out there that, oh, don't say they control this or that. Hooey, because the evidence shows they do, they have an agenda, and they do. So by seeing the agenda doesn't mean, oh, they're all powerful and I'm going to, I'm not going to fight and I'm not going to be in, it's the opposite. Okay. Because we still have free will. Once you see this, like Jackie said, the apple, it's, you wouldn't, if you did grab it, you'll put it away. You do not want it. Maybe it's too late when you grab the apple. Maybe that was the first mark. You will not want it. You'll see the seduction and you will not grab for it. It's never too late to reclaim your baptism, the image of God inside of you. And you just, the thing is, you see the agenda and you put walls. When I start watching that Netflix, I'm going to see, wait a minute, it's baked in the cake here. When I start listening to the politics, it's baked in the cake. When I start hearing people say lesser of two evils, it's like, no, that's evil and I don't want it. I will engage in the world, but I want to know what ladder, what wall I'm putting my ladder on. I'm not going to crawl up that wall. And anyway, yes, the idea that they control both sides is, the evidence is absolutely not there. So it won't disempower you. It's going to do quite the opposite. And we reaffirm that all the time in our locals community. The more we look into the deep state, the more we look into the deep church, the more we reclaim our own faith and find the ability to support others in their faith walks. So to that extent that they're literally creating what we call the spectacle. The spectacle is nothing new. St. Augustine, Tertullian talk about in the ancient times, getting lost in the amusements. It literally has a demonic ontology. And for St. Augustine, St. John Chrysostom, you could not be baptized and catechized and walk into the kingdom of heaven until you had been exorcised from these demons. And right now, until we see it's baked in the cake, we can't do any kind of even our own self exorcisms and just detach from this beast system. It's all around us. So just bear that in mind. I'm going to go through a couple numbers and then we'll be done with silent weapons for quiet wars. Number one, to create the spectacle, disengaging their minds. This is the sheep. You know, they are the eugenicists. They are the animal, the husband masters. So, um, disengaging their minds, sabotaging their mental activities by providing a low quality program of public education in mathematics, logic, systems designs, and economics, and by discouraging technical creativity. And I'd include that, like, just thinking outside the flippin' box now and again and connecting some dots. The capacity to do that is out. Okay. I don't want to be that guy. Okay. So it's right there. What we're always said, deliberate dumbing down, uh, a world of amusements and distraction. Put them into the spectacle. They will get attached to the demonic ontology, get lost in what we always refer to as the self-referential reality. Everything comes back to itself, nothing back to the symbolic economy of the church. Number two, engaging their emotions, increasing their self-indulgence and their indulgence in emotional and physical activities by, before I continue, by, this is the modern systems that they did. It's all about our freedoms of expressing ourselves materially, comparing ourselves always. Do I have a good life? And putting that in material things, which is the opposite of what the saints of the church have always told us. Esteem in the minds of men, Christ tells us in scripture, that's abhorrent to me. What men esteem, I abhor. And so they're telling you, get into a world of self-referential reality where you're just living by what the world esteems. So we're going to do this system of self-referential indulgence, unrelenting emotional affronts and attacks, mental and emotional rape. Juice Malou put a book out almost the exact same time, 1954, I believe, and he was looking at the totalitarian nature of both communism and Nazism. And he called the book "The Rape of the Mind." The techniques, the modern techniques back then that had developed to subvert the mind, body, and soul, and now with the computer and the advances in AI and technology, it's only becoming more advanced. And part of the equation here is 1984. It is totalitarian. It's tyranny on steroids, but it is also Brave New World. To some extent, people are going to love their servitude if they can't identify it. They're going to fall it. And a lot of times as we always say, they're going to think they're living in the city of God because the enemy has usurped all of the economy of language and signs, but they're living in the city of man. So they're going to be living in a world of scientism, of churchianity. Okay. B, giving them what they desire. In excess of junk food. I'm surprised they had that term way back then. For thought, junk food for thought, junk food. And we say silent weapons. It's the chemtrails. It's the frequencies that we don't even know about when we're watching our entertainment. It's this just more and more regulation of our lives. And now there's the passage of the real ID, and it just keeps going. Always, that's the idea of biopolitics. Foucault and Giorgio Agamben would say, always under the pretext, it's for your health. That's how they get you. And that's how they got us over the last 5 years, right? You love Granny, because these eugenicists just care so much about your grandmother. Rewriting history and law and subjecting the public to the deviant creation, thus being allowed to shift their thinking from personal needs to bigger fabricated outside priorities. So self-referential reality. The general rule is that there is profit in confusion, order out of chaos. We have an agenda, create some more chaos, interject the agenda. The more confusion, the more profit. Therefore, the best approach is to create problems and then offer solutions. In one portion of the book, they do, I know sometimes people snicker, but they say the kind of the people funding this are essentially the Rothschild cartel. This is not the outsiders. This is actually the people writing the book are like, are praising the Rothschild cabal. So that is just a little bit to get us thinking about Palantir. It's supposed to monopolize all of the other surveillance systems, a surveillance system for them all. I'm going to
Yeah.
take a breath, Jackie. I've been going at it
Yeah.
pretty hard.
Yeah,
Um,
really quick, I'd like to say,
yeah.
because the whole time you're talking, I began to think back something in my own life, but I think we all get in that mindset because, and it's happened for generations and generations where the world just gets us in that mindset of what we should be like, who we should imitate, how we should look. And those are just some of the little things that we get captured by this enslavement. And we don't realize that we partake in it and we're enslaved by it. And one of the things that I had when I decided to abandon myself more deeply into the church and into Christ, I found a freedom, a freedom where, hey, I didn't need to color my hair anymore. Let me be the age that I am. I don't need
Mm,
to look like the superstar model who's on, you know what I'm saying? And I can be proud of being a mother who, although I had a career and went to college, I decided to stay home and raise my children and make sure that they understood the faith, and that is true success in our lives. And because I don't want them to be a slave to money and the things that the world thinks that we should be living. I never felt a greater sense of freedom when I just did
yeah.
those little things in my life. And we can continue to do it. And I feel like because I made that choice, I made the choice to have the image of God and not what the world wanted. I now see more clearly all of the lies around me.
It's beautiful, Jackie. For me, coming into the Catholic mindset, and I'm the one, I do hear other people doing it now. I try to put everything either in a video or in a book so that I can demonstrate. Did you hear anybody say this before me? So, because there's a lot of things going around. I said that the church is accesses reality. And this Monday we did a show and we tried to kind of tease through this essence, reality, being. They're all kind of the same thing. God is being, God is reality, God is essence or essential. But for me, becoming Catholic and understanding these things, the church leads us into reality because it's hierarchical, it's historical, and it's sacramental. All of those things of understanding have greatly liberated me, as you said, because I see how society was meant to be structured, as both St. Augustine and St. Thomas would say, properly ordered. And
Yeah.
when I see how God intended our societies, it helps me see how my own life is supposed to be properly ordered.
Mhm.
To really get in sync with the graces that God has offered you, it really helps you to see what did he intend for a well-ordered society and a well-ordered individual to be. So, for example, hierarchical. I grew up in America. I'm my own man. I'm my own thinker. And I had to see, no, there is a place for everybody in every time. And you can be anything within the king. As far as the kingdom of heaven goes and your personal aspirations, you can find any within your allotted space. And it was just so liberating, just to be
Yes.
free
Mhm.
to be,
Mhm.
you know, who,
It's
my station in life.
yeah,
Do
it's
your
like
thing in
saying
your station in life.
it's like saying there's freedom in order, which doesn't make sense to the average person anymore. It's like, what? When you're in order, you're having to submit to something. Yeah, but it depends on what you're submitting to,
Right.
right?
Absolutely. So we have so many videos here, Palantir
Mhm.
proposals going through our Congress right now. Now, at
Yeah,
the same time,
yeah,
inside Trump's cabinet, while there's decisions being made, one of the chief advisors is on a hotline to Israel, figuring out techniques to make sure we go to war. This is no small stuff that,
yeah.
this could just destroy everything. I mean, maybe, who knows? We don't know, but it's very dangerous.
It
So in other
is.
words, it's the worst kind of treason. So he just gets shuffled off to another position. That's if
Mhm.
somebody that's trying to really devastate our country, make us go to war with, somebody that really has not attacked us, as
Yeah.
far as I understand. So it's, for their interest. And some people are just kind of laughing and they're surprised. So I just thought there was an automatic pipeline and that was understood. So
Yeah.
as this guy, it's being revealed, this highest level of treason, this is beyond really anything that's been tried or considered before. And yet at the same time, we'll play it over on Locals if you want to hear it. There's measures coming through Congress that in some way you're involved, even in social media posts, with the idea of boycotting this genocidal, that you could lose your livelihood, the prison sentence, the insane sign. Do you see how uneven this is? And there's no pushback.
Right.
There's no pushback. It's the end of Christian resistance. Trump on the chair of Peter. And there's nobody saying, there's no pushback. There's no surveillance because people, I guess, are not connecting the dots, or they do not love truth. So they choose to be in this self-referential reality. I want to finish this with just a little bit about Palantir. And this is Stephen Banoon here. And I'll just play a little bit of him commenting. It's about 45 minutes long, just helping people get their heads around Palantir and just the level of control that this technology is about to unleash. But here he's talking a little bit about the idea of the pre-crime concept here for people like us, Jackie.
Right.
Their specific ability to track and target individuals labeled as anti-Semites. However, several indirect pieces of information and patterns suggest a plausible framework where such surveillance could occur, particularly under the broader umbrella. This is what I discovered, of national security and terrorism. And that's what Israel is using, is those types of terminology. And so I pulled up this article from Sputnik just to make that case in point here. Israeli government announced its plan to surveil and deport BDS activists. An escalation of tactics against the pro-Palestinian boycott, divest, and sanctions BDS movement. The Israeli government has announced a new program that will track and deport people who support or are involved with the organization. Interior Ministry.
Okay, you get a little bit of that idea here, and I just want to play one little cut here because we've been talking, and the reason I know Steve Banoon is not Catholic. I use other sources occasionally in what I do. We talk about it from a Catholic concept of and I know the guest I had, I don't know his sexuality or anything. I gave you guys his catalog. He's got the biggest one on Noahide. Noahide is part of this surveillance system. And ultimately, these eugenicists want to make a decision who dies and who lives and who's going to enter as a slave into this new system. So they're all connected here. But I want to play. Did you want to make a quick comment, Jackie? Are you good?
Yeah. I would just say, don't worry about your sources. We're always praying that they will have that conversion for the fullness of the truth. And we have to always be praying for those graces. So there's still good sources. If they can see it, then we need to understand that God uses many instruments.
So one of the chiefs over there with the tech company, just kind of, this is from a long segment, just kind of gloating about just the level of control they're going to have everybody. He does what sounds like a Freudian slip. Now, it started a little bit early, so it might take a few seconds or longer to get there, but you'll know when we hit it.
And Palantir co-founder Peter Thiel, heavily invested in the company, is also heavily invested in President Trump and Vice President Vance. He was a major campaign donor to both. Then the stated goal of Doge is to streamline and combine government data, which is exactly what Palantir does.
But the ways that the government is defrauded is that the computer systems don't talk to each other.
And obviously, Karp is loving it.
Disruption, at the end of the day, exposes things that aren't working. There'll be ups and downs. This is a revolution. Some people can get their head.
Okay. I want to emphasize this. Oh my gosh, did I throw this away? What did he say about disruption at the end of the day? That's what we mentioned right here, is that this whole system is based upon disruption, because we, at the end of the day, profit. The general rule is that there is a profit in confusion, And the more confusion, the more profit. Therefore, the best approach is to create problems and then offer solutions. Problem, reaction, solution. You can't get much more clear than that. And that's also the motto of the Masons. So let me back up, because I just hit it right when he was about to say it. So let me back up.
The ways that the government is defrauded is that the computer systems don't talk to each other.
And obviously, Carp is loving it.
Disruption, in the end of the day, exposes things that aren't working. There'll be ups and downs. There's a revolution. Some people can get their heads cut off. Like, it's like
Did you hear that? Did you hear what Karp said right there? They're using this. Of course, they got Trump into power by doing this, but let's back up just a little bit. I want you to hear again what Karp said. All right? Listen closely and think of the 7 Noahide laws and their penalties.
exposes things that aren't working. There'll be ups and downs. There's a revolution. Some people can get their heads cut off. Like,
Some people are going to get their heads cut off.
Okay. So here we're back, Jackie. And there's so much more about what's going on and connecting the dots. So we do this every Wednesday over on Locals. We take the stories from that week and we connect it with all of the memory hold material and all the other material that we've presented here, so that we can make sense of this pattern of history, both redemption history and secular history, and seeing how they converge in our own minds. And of course, our purpose is what Jackie and I just discussed right here, so that we can return to the fullness of truth and embrace our baptisms and embrace the image of God that was put upon us. And any final thoughts for us today, Jackie?
I would say it's really detaching ourselves from all of the mind control that we don't even realize that started for such a long time and has progressed all the way to this time. And that it is a freedom that we need in order to stay clear-minded and be able to see clearly the deceptions that we're being handed. You got to cleanse yourself from it, detach yourself from it. And the only way to do that is to see yourself in the image of God and get out of this idea that I have to be controlled in every way of my life by what the world says I should be. That's where we get ourselves blinded and caught up in that confusion and unable to see what are the real deceptions that I'm being handed here. And so that's basically what Christ wanted for us. Pick up your cross and follow me. It's not the world. So, yeah.
Yeah. And that's why we can get really complicated and talk about technologies and algorithms. But at the end of the day, we enter the kingdom of heaven as children. Thank you. I like that, Jackie. So we are going over to do part 2 of Connect the Dots, May 7th, 2025. Where have the years gone? And thank you, as usual, for helping put together this segment today, Jackie. And we are out of here. Thank you, everybody.